Ja, tak skal du have. Så inden vi går over til engelsk, så vil jeg sige, at efter interviewet her, så vil der blive mulighed for at købe og få signeret Indra Sinhs bog, Animals People, dyrets folk, som kan købes over ved Kiels stand efter interviewet. Og der er også mulighed for at stille spørgsmål til sidst kort, og det kan man også stille på dansk, så skal jeg nok oversætte, hvis man har et andet at stille spørgsmål. But for now, a very warm welcome to Indra Singh and Tabish Khair, two eminent novelists, two very daring novelists, I'd say, who have a lot of things in common and perhaps also a lot of differences among you. And we can explore both differences and similarities throughout this conversation. We'll start off by saying a few things about the two novels that has recently been published in Danish. Film, En kærlighedshistorie, Filming a Love Story by Tabish Khair, which is from 2007 in the English version and came out last year in Danish. And Animals People, Dyrets folk, which is also from 2007 and came out this year in Danish. One small fun fact about it, I mean, the similarities, you're both born in India, you both live in Europe now, have done some for decades. So of course you have some experiences and also some ideas about what it means to be between the Indian sphere and the European sphere. And a small detail is that both your novels, I think that's perhaps really a coincidence, that you don't have chapters in Animals People, you have tapes. Because the novel is based on someone giving an account, which is organized in tapes. And film, which is about film and a lot of other things, is organized in reels, in filmruller. So instead of chapters, you have film rolls. So I think that's just another interesting coincidence that you both have this. But I'll start off by posing a question to you, Indra, about Animals People. Which is a brilliant, fascinating novel. It's a very dramatic novel that is thinly disguised as being about the Bhopal disaster in the 1980s and the consequences of that. But it's told in a very ingenious way, in a very daring way. You could have written an account of what happened in Bhopal, but you've written a novel which takes on a completely different figure, animal, who's a child that has been harmed by the disaster and now walks on all fours. And you let him tell his story. Could you say a bit about why you have chosen this form or why did this disaster that you have also been very much engaged in as an activist, can you tell me why did you come up with this thing?
Well, I've been involved as an activist and fundraiser for the Bhopalis for 17 years now, since 1994, and we always wanted to tell the story of what happened after the disaster, not the thing itself, because that was quite well known. Of course, we're talking about a time 10 years nearer to it than now, but nobody knew about the poisoning of the water, the fact that the factory had been left by the company uncleaned. You know, all the chemicals are still there, they're still getting into the water, that they knew about it and they didn't do anything, that children were being born with a lot of damage. None of this was known, and the company was denying that there was a problem. So that was the background to wanting to do something on this subject. And at first we thought of it as a film, which is an irony because it's going to be a film now, so it comes full circle. But at the time there was no animal. I was working with some characters who were in here, but the other main characters, the singer who's lost his voice, his daughter, the activist leader and so on. And we decided to put in, or I decided to put in an American doctor, a woman, on the grounds that if we wanted to get any Hollywood money, we'd have to have an American in it. So that's how that came about. But none of it worked. It was like, you know, in alchemy they say that you mix all these things up and it just remains dead, nothing happens, until somebody one day showed me this picture of a boy who was on all fours, and in that instant, the character animal appeared in my mind and immediately began to abuse me. And so then I knew that I found it quite funny. So then I thought, well, this is the voice that needs to tell this story. So it happened like that. And now, paradoxically, after all these years, it's going to be made into a film. So the original intention can be realized in time, hopefully, for the 30th anniversary of the Bhopal disaster. But I should just say this quickly, that I didn't call it Bhopal because the Bhopal story is very, very difficult and complicated, and a story like that deserves to be told truthfully. And I could not tell that story in fiction without killing the fiction, because the fiction is about characters. So it became like a backdrop. That's why I changed the name of the town to Khair. But everybody, I wanted the book to be taken on its own merits, not as a sort of piece of propaganda for a good cause. But the very first reviewer saw straight through it, and so I can't deny it.
Yes, and turning to, we'll of course get back to both of your works, but just to give the word to Tabish. Your novel takes us back to the time after around the Indian independence in the late 1940s. And it's both a story with the big history, the killing of Gandhi, and the division of India and Pakistan into two separate nations, and all the things that tears apart. And then you decided in an interesting, almost enchanting setting of the Indian film industry, which is something that everybody, also in Europe, knows about today, that there is a booming Indian film industry, and you take us back to the beginnings and some of the characters working in that industry. Could you tell us a little bit about more about what does this setting do for you? What does it do for your story?
Well, I'll start with an anecdote. Is this working? It is. Okay, good.
Just keep it closer.
Yeah. I was given a 2-novel contract by Picador UK after my first novel, The Bus Stopped, came out. So I was supposed to write a second novel for them. And that second novel turned out to be filming. So after, say, about 2 years or so, 2 years after The Bus Stopped had been published, one of the Picador editors asked me what I was working on, and I said, well, I'm working on a novel that is set largely in the Indian film industry, the Bombay film industry. And the editor said, oh, that's good, you're writing us your Bollywood novel. And I said, no, I'm not writing a Bollywood novel. And she said, why not? And I said, because this takes place in the 1940s, and the term Bollywood came into vogue in the 1980s. So she said, but we can call it your Bollywood novel. I said, no, you cannot call it my Bollywood novel. At the most, you can call it my Bombay film industry novel. So that's where we stood. I didn't let them call it my Bollywood novel. I suspect that cost me a few thousand copies in sales. So the reason I started writing about the Indian film industry, it's actually more Indian than Bombay, because I write about Pune and Calcutta too, but mostly around Bombay, was that I wanted to examine the issue of how dreams drive us and how dreams go wrong too. Because that was also something that happened in India. The dream of an independent, secular country, it was a dream, it was a glorious dream. And things also went wrong with it. Not everything. A lot of good came out of it too. But finally, the ways in which we achieve a dream are not exactly the ways in which we envision that. And that's what I deal with in different ways, both through the story, as well as the notion of the film industry and its dreams of some people wanting to make it in the film industry in the novel, and behind them this larger backdrop of a nation being born and in the process fracturing into two nations, but then finally 3 nations. That was perhaps the driving force.